All right.
Hey, there we go. All right. It's quite your head a little shrunk. There we go. Perfect. All right. Everything works great. So, we're gonna have a vodcast. We're not gonna talk about Extra Life because that'd be silly. It's only next week, and also it's gonna be all of next week. So, I mean, let's worry about that next week.
We'll say it for the Friday podcast.
Oh, sure. All right. So, I've been invited to this game that you ran. I'm gonna ignore every single thing that's here.
Turn off all that. Throw all out.
Yep. Okay. Yep. Well, there's a lot of it. Oh boy. All right. Wow, a lot of stuff shows up for Polly. Oh my god. When I mouse over, what'd you do to this person? Okay, so this week you ran a one-shot to experiment with well, the system, right? You're trying to
a few things,
test some things out. So why don't you walk us through what you worked on?
Okay.
Tell us what was the experiment?
Yep. So the experiment here, there's a couple things I wanted to test. One, I wanted to test what it's like, to not use magic at all in a game where the enemies use magic but the players don't. So there's that. I wanted to see how versatile all fighters are, just because people always talk about fighters and all that stuff, and like they're like the only class that doesn't have a subclass too. So like, having them just build whatever they can build and test it out, as well as see like how cool archetypes can go with that. And then also on top of that, I wanted to test out the solo boss thing that we talked about a few podcasts ago. So all this is happening in one shot. So you might say like this is not really a controlled experiment. It's just
definitely not. Definitely not.
Throwing all the ideas that I've had, and I only I don't run too many games, so I might as well throw it all in this one shot. So yeah, the group, we have 5 people. It was a level 5 adventure. The only class they can play is fighters. They can't pick anything that has to do with magic. So no not subclasses, archetypes or feats that give them spellcasting. But I did tell them that they could scrolls and magic items that like make you cast a spell are okay. You just cannot be able to cast spells natively.
So they had to take trick magic item feat or whatever.
Yeah, trick magic item. Yeah, they would have to take trick magic item feat.
Which is honestly the meta for non-spellcasting classes anyways in Pathfinder. That way they get the best of everything. They get the best of everything.
Yeah, if they need to. They need to. I mean, at the end of the day, you're still having to use a your DC and all that stuff. So if that's not good, it doesn't really matter. But
but to get access to like Long Strider or whatever the Pathfinder equivalent is, and just the useful buffs and stuff like that. One would argue that the spellcasters have a similar feat to give them a +2 to their attack rolls. Maybe you could trick yourself into thinking that you have a +2 to your attack rolls. All right, keep going.
So the crew here, we have five fighters. We have from the top, we have Bezra, who's a Dex fighter with the gunslinger archetype.
Okay.
We have Cornubus, who is also a Dex fighter with the Alchemist archetype.
With the what? With the what archetype?
Alchemist.
Okay, got it.
Yep, Alchemist. We have Watchman Thorpe here, who is a heavy armored strength halberd wearing fighter with, I believe, the Barbarian archetype.
Okay.
We have Polly, who's a halfling fighter with the I think it was the improvised weapon archetype, improvised brawler or something like that, And then we have Belinda who's also strength fighter with the martial archetype.
Okay.
So 1, 2, 3 melee people and 2 range people.
Okay.
And then Cornubus is the healer. Took all the medicine feats he could take for level 5, up to level 5. And so this adventure, I'll just run you through the adventure real quick. They are sort of tasked by they're like the elite squad from the kingdom. In this world, there's the demon lord's domain. There's the kingdom's domain. There's the border. There's a village at the border. they have been tasked by the kingdom to go and make sure there's no demon activity and stop any like profane rituals from happening at this village.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's intel that there might be something going on.
Mm-hmm.
So they show up, suspicious of everybody. They get they have a contact here who's supposed to, let them know what's going on. When they get here, they find out that, late at night, in the middle of the night, people are like leaving the village every once in a while and just walking out into the wilderness. And then as their contact has been watching them, they eventually just show back up in the village. So they leave, but they never see them come back. So that night they go and, tail some of these people who are leaving. They lead them to a weird altar where people are performing human sacrifice. They fight cultists. Cultists die and turn into shadows. There's one big shadow demon there. They fight the shadow demon while trying to prevent this ritual. When the problem is that the ritual demands people to get killed by the ritual site. So as they're like cutting down people, the ritual is just getting fed. And so the ritual ends up going through, and which once they figure out what the ritual is doing, has to do with something with this village. So they end up going back to the village. As they're heading back now throughout the forest, they're seeing like weird forest stuff. So like the lake started turning blood red and like nasty. They run into a creature that's it's very weird. I honestly just put this part in because I just wanted you to see this creature. I'll point it up it's this creature.
Well, that's horrible.
Yeah, it's called a blood painter. I just wanted to run into that, so I put that in there. And it was a social encounter.
Okay.
This thing is level 9, and they were level 5, so it just wanted some blood to continue painting.
I see.
Yeah. So there's that, and then they finally make it back to the village. It turns out the innkeeper, who was who they met when they first kind of got there and like gave them room and board and fed them, was a succubus who was messing with the villagers and like sort of feeding them awkward food, taking their life essence and blood, and using it to perform some type of ritual. So they come back. All the villagers are killed. There's blood all over the place, and there's the innkeeper standing in the middle, covered in blood. Mm-hmm. They find her. She reveals herself as the succubus, and they fight.
Okay.
Yep. So that's pretty much the adventure. The succubus, we were talking about solo boss fights, so I wanted to test this out. And so this boss is actually a hazardous boss. So it's a level 7 solo creature that's level 7, which is, for a party of 5 level 5s, that's like a moderate encounter.
Right.
It's not supposed to be difficult at all. Actually, it's less than moderate. It's actually pretty easy for 5 characters.
But she got that hit points, though. She got them hit points.
Yeah, so what happened is I made it so what would be a 3 monster encounter for a party of level 5 to be like severe, which is 1 level 7 and 2 level 5 monsters would be a like slightly above severe encounter for a group of level 5 party of 5 level 5s. And so what I did was I took 2 other monsters, which was a babu, babu, and a a brimok. That's what it's called. These 2 creatures, and I just turned them into hazards.
Okay.
I just made a hazard and just dragged stuff off of their sheet onto the hazard. So if you look at her, there's like 2 little tiny versions of her invisible right next to her, right here. If you open up those, they'll show you the 2 hazards that block.
Are they set up as familiars to follow her, or
no? I just have them on the thing. They roll the initiative, and I just they're just invisible on the map. I click on them because everything is supposed to be coming from her, right? But I'm using the stats of the hazards when their turn comes up. Yeah, and so these are the 3 stat blocks I was using for this one boss fight. Each of these stat blocks rolled their own initiative.
Okay.
And then she had pretty much as many activations as she had stat blocks. They went in the order of initiative. If one of the hazards was the one that put somebody down, they would move into the initiative above that stat block.
Sure.
Yeah. And
so she got 9 actions per round.
Yeah, 9 actions per round.
But when it was Valentia's blood, it could only use actions from that sheet.
Yes. Yeah. That, and then normally move and the basic actions that everybody can do.
Mm-hmm.
So like move, intimidate, all that stuff.
And these things had her same stats for skills?
No.
They
had the stats of this Brimok. And they had the stats of this Babu, but level 5. I reduced it to level 5.
Okay.
So when she had to do something, the only thing that she did keep was her movement. Movement was always, her base movement.
Gotcha.
And these things, the fight. So like her normal attack is a normal 16 attack, whereas these guys had a 15.
Right.
Because they're level 5 creatures.
Sure.
So that's what it was. So when there was a blood turn, she would attack people with her blood spear. When it was a fire turn, she would attack people with her flaming sword.
Okay.
And do all these other things. And then she had reactions for each of them had their own reaction.
But all triggered from her space.
From her space, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a question that immediately comes to mind. 3 monsters as one monster is going to be highly susceptible to crowd control and status effects. Yeah. So how do you parse that? So if they have like an ongoing thing, when does the ongoing thing trigger? So they're only targeting the main one. Okay.
So the main one has the status effect, but that status effect infects all of them.
Okay. So
if they have like something that gives them a -1
ongoing damage, she would only take it on her turn, not her blood or her fire's turn.
No.
Okay. All right. Other side of the coin, an effect that you can do an ongoing save to end because it's detrimental, like a paralyzed effect or something like that, or a slow effect. That goes all the way through. And she only gets to try to clear it on her turn. Okay.
That's why she also has so much HP, because she has the HP of her, this Babadook, and this Babu and this Brimok, all in one HP block, one in one HP. And so even with the fighters doing their massive, crits, she would still be able to, hang. And also she's she's also 2 levels higher than the
right.
PCs. So she's saved by the incapacitate trait, and she most likely she's going to save on when she needs to save.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yep.
So,
but it also makes it so that when you do hit those hard spells and they fail, the players feel it. They got something. It helped them out a lot. It's really strong. It gives casters a really good thing when they finally do hit their spell.
Okay. Did you get to see that during the fight? But not really, because no one was a spellcaster, right?
No one was a spellcaster. So it was mostly, what was good was like when somebody, those reactive. So because she had 3 activations, and each of those activations she could move. She could spend an action to move. Right? So but everybody here had reactive strike. So that's where it was beneficial. So like even though she one activation caused her to move to another person. She would either try and step or move, and there was more opportunities for them to get reactive strikes or waste actions for her on her other activations to try and step away. One thing that happened in this fight is that this succubus, so the main body has spells. The other activations could not cast their spells because they didn't have any spells.
Sure. Right?
Okay. So on her main turn, she dominated one of the Belinda, the fighter right here with the martial thing, and domination in Pathfinder is pretty bad.
You take command of the target, forcing it to obey your orders. If you issue obviously self-destructive order, the target doesn't act until you issue a new order. The effect depends on its will save. It sounds just like dominate in 5e, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you get it to end in this?
You have to succeed on your will save. There's no duration.
Until the next time you... Wow. So once you're dominated, you're just dominated. That's it.
Unless
somebody counteracts it, right? Is that the only...
unless somebody counteracts it. So unless somebody counteracts it. But if you just fail every time they give you an order, after you do the order, you do a will save.
Okay, I see it there. Okay.
Yeah.
But did they critically fail?
No, they failed.
Oh, okay.
They just were rolling really bad so they would roll high on their attacks against their friends and then roll bad on their will saves.
Oh man, I have to ask. This has nothing to do with anything, but maybe because your science is already completely effed in the A because you did too many things at once. But did you let them use any kind of fanspo or anything for this?
They had they all started with 3 hero points.
Just the 3 hero points. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, for the entire one shot.
Nice.
Yeah.
Some of them must have been really struggling with that. Anyways, okay. So, I guess I want to ask a couple questions. First one, how did you feel about all fighters? When I first started playing Pathfinder, and probably for the first year of playing Pathfinder, and even maybe a little bit still, I just feel like fighter is lazy design compared to all the other classes. I just feel like throwing a +2 and reactive strike on a level 1 character is, I think it's kind of bullshit. Now I've played long enough now that I've experienced higher level play. I've watched other games that are at higher levels of play. I've, read up on it, that kind of thing. Eyewitness testimonies, etc., etc. Yes, I acknowledge firsthand that the other classes come online and the fighter fades from the spotlight and then everybody is great around level 8. So like for the first 7 levels, you really are just following the fighter around and the fighter's like solving all your problems. So like in the same way that I've suggested before, and this is how the meme on our server about the Ghostbusters, right? The party of artificers that specializes in hunting ghosts or whatever. Because we joked around that like you could make any class in the game better by just reskinning an artificer. So I was very curious if this Whoops All Fighters Pathfinder edition would yield sort of a similar vibe, right? Like with free archetype, I kind of feel like you could have a party of 5 fighters that feel totally distinct from each other. Like they feel like completely different characters. Like they don't feel like 5 fighters. It just feels like 5 individuals who are all very good at getting critical hits. What was your take on the 5 fighters?
So I think it worked out pretty well. They made a point to try and make themselves different from each other.
Sure.
Which is a question I had requested for them to do that. And in terms of getting critical hits, at the beginning, yes, they were getting a lot of critical hits. But that's because I was in the first fight they'd had when they were fighting all the cultists. All those cultists were like commoners and cultists and people like around 3 at most at level 3. Yeah, they were critting like
at that point you would argue everybody would be critting, right? Because they're 2 levels under them, blah blah blah. Yeah.
But there was one demon that was level 7 that they were fighting, and that one he got crit once. Throughout the entire fight.
Wow. Which, statistically that doesn't seem right. Like statistically. For 5 fighters to only crit a monster once, that just doesn't seem right.
And we had but that crit was the crit that killed him.
Okay.
It came through with huge damage, like it was like 50 damage,
of course,
something like that.
Yeah.
44 damage, something like that. Also triggering one of his weaknesses, I think, because it was Polly with her cold iron firing pan.
Right.
Yeah. So I think with fighters and that +2. It helps with when you're fighting something, the fighter's going to fight, and they're going to be the best at fighting.
Yeah, you can't make a class in a game that's better at fighting when the majority of your game is fighting. Like I stand by that still. I stand by that.
Yeah, I understand.
That would be like that would be like in Street Fighter if one character was 10% better than all the other characters, and they're like, well, he's just really good at fighting. Well, the game's called Street Fighter. Okay. Like we're all here to fight.
Let me rephrase that.
Okay.
They're the best at hitting stuff.
Sure. Yeah. But with free archetype and with the ability to fool magical items and stuff, like aren't they able to kind of cover all the bases?
I feel like a rogue would be better at that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Because with how many skills the rogue has, and if they, as long as so fighter by themselves, will get will do really good against stuff that's weaker to them. You get something that's harder than them, they're going to get knocked down really fast, and you know, at that point, hopefully they kill the thing before they get
I got you. So it's a DPS race. If it's fighter, it's a DPS race.
And
okay.
Fighters good at DPS because they're good at hitting stuff.
But as I'm learning, as you get higher in level and you introduce monsters that have a variety of defenses, immunities, resistances, the fighters that are like, I am so good at spear, I am so good at hammer, but like that's it. They're only good at spear. They're only good at hammer.
And if you make a fighter that has the diversity to not be messed up by that, then they're going to be on the same level as everybody else.
Right, because then they're not going to be hyper specialized anymore.
Yes,
I got you.
So with fighter, because they're so versatile, they have a lot of room to specifically specialize, and then they're like super good at whatever they specialize at.
But whereas honestly, if you think about our Curse of Strahd game and the Daybreak one, right? Both gunslingers ran into the same problem. They were both dropping so much damage till they ran out of bullets, or they were dropping so much damage till they encountered something that was like, I don't care about ranged attacks, or I don't care about bullets. And then they were like, I guess my character's trash. I guess I'm garbage. I guess I have nothing to offer. And it's like, you did this to yourself. You know what I'm saying? You hyper specialized to the point. It's like a person that makes a fire mage and then they're upset when they fight things that are immune to fire. It's like, well, you get to be the best 90% of the time. You can't complain and have a bad attitude when that 10% comes along that you're not the best anymore.
And if the like, a lot of times, you know, you're in an adventure. Adventures are usually themed. And that theme, you know, gives you a direction for you to specialize in. So a fighter, you know, in any adventure, once they make their character and they figure out what the theme is, then they can specialize for the adventure. And it'll be like, you know, maybe 2 or 3 moments when that doesn't work out. But for the most part, because they know the theme of the adventure, they know what direction you need to go in, they can you know, specialize in that.
Oof. What if it's an adventure like Kingmaker? What's a fighter gonna do then?
Then the fighter should diversify.
Right? Yeah. Okay. I got it. All right.
I'm playing because I'm planning to play a fighter in Kingmaker, and I'm doing strength, wisdom, and charisma. And I'm using an axe that does slashing, and I'm gonna have an animal companion that does piercing and bludgeoning.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So the fighter experiment. Would all fighters with free archetypes fulfill your monster hunter fantasy, or would you want to open it up to like fighters and rogues, or fighters, rogues, and barbarians?
I will definitely open it up. Because I
figured. Yeah,
because I don't plan on making it be, you know, that high level. I'm probably going to do I'll probably have it maybe start off at 3 and go to 10.
Okay.
If I do it.
Yeah.
And at that point, you know, it's kind of like there's a lot of options to diversify for fighter, but at the end of the day, you're still a fighter, and so you know, I would want to see some of the other stuff happen too in the non-magic area, like see a you know, rogue trying some other stuff, see a barbarian do some stuff, see you know, monk, you know, do something, you know,
right,
see a ranger.
Man, I'm curious about monk because I'm playing a monk in Baldur's Gate 3 right now because I'm playing I'm playing through with my kid, and like they made monk like so satisfying to play, and then I've heard that the Pathfinder monk is even more satisfying to play than the Baldur's Gate 3 monk or even the World Patch monk. So like I am very curious about that. Like I was not you know how I feel about playing monks and how I feel about monks and fantasy in general, but like today before this stream I caught an arrow and I threw it back into this Dwegar's face and killed him, and I felt pretty fucking cool. And then and I was like okay, I can see the fantasy here that's building. Yeah.
There's some I was when Kobolds was going to happen, I had made two character concepts. One was a beefy monk kobold, and one was a stealthy rogue poison kobold. And the beefy monk kobold, like all the cool like fist punch hats and stuff that happens with it is really cool. And then they're just really good at all saves.
Yeah.
So like
yeah.
you're like flipping and dodging, and there's so much movement too. So it's really cool. Like you're like zipping all over the place, you know, causing status effects by knocking people over and stuff like that.
Okay. So
But yeah,
so all fighters experiment works, but you wouldn't recommend it. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, no, there's no reason.
yeah.
There's no reason to do it,
Okay.
other than if you just want to do it.
Mhm.
If you want to do no magic, I think you can. I mean, we've Alchemist, you've seen it work in in Alchemist.
Well, one of the Alchemist.
One of the Alchemist.
Right.
But there's enough mundane options to help you get around the no magic thing.
Well, I'll be real, man. Saying that Alchemist is not magical is the most video game ass shit of all time. Because the higher level alchemy stuff, you can't.
I mean, yeah, you just make a rock come out of a bottle.
It's non-magical. It's non-magical in the way that like Tony Stark in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is non-magical. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, nano machines. Yeah, nanotech. Nah. I was having a discussion with somebody today about Pathfinder 2 only works for me if I just tell myself these people live inside a video game. Like that's the only way. The only way that I can enjoy Pathfinder is to just tell myself like, yeah, this takes place inside a video game. It's a video game world. It's 100% just an MMO.
Isekai.
Yeah, it's
an isekai.
Isekai. I woke up
in a video game. Sheet.
Yeah. Yeah, because like I was finally catching up on the revised Alchemist stuff, which I'm a terrible DM because I got two Alchemists that are still on the old Alchemist because they're both too busy and tired to do it, and I was too busy and tired to do it. But I finally was like, I'm gonna find out what it's about. They definitely need to switch over because the new revised Alchemist. But the new revised Alchemist is like, yeah, these potions are mine. They're just for me. They disappear 6 seconds after I make them. Don't ask why or how. I always have them. No matter where we are, and I'm always able to find the ingredients for them. I only need 10 minutes. What recipe am I using? That's none of your business. Can I make more? No, I can't. Are these spells? They're definitely not spells. And it's just like...
That's Elion right there. He's breaking off pieces of himself.
I know, but it's like, it's so... right? Like, I don't know. In Final Fantasy VII, the character Barret, great name by the way, he has this gun arm, and he never runs out of bullets.
Yeah.
And then
he just shakes.
My kid and I were like, well, maybe he just has the bullet materia. Like maybe there's a materia that's just part of the gun that just summons bullets. It just makes infinite bullets. That's the materia. It just makes infinite bullets. But it's that same idea. Do you know what I mean? Of like, yeah. Like nobody wants their cool ranged character to run out of arrows. Nobody wants their cool gun arm guy to run out of bullets. Nobody wants their alchemist to run out of potions. And there's that certain thing where you just have to be like, this is completely unrealistic in every possible way. And that's fine. But getting off topic there. But yeah, so fighter scenario, that's cool. Glad that worked out for you. It seems like you learned a bit more about the fighter and its kind of place in the ecosystem.
Yeah.
What after that, do you feel that the fighter is still front loaded in the same manner as like a 5e hexblade, or do you think that it's okay after this experiment? Has that changed any way that you feel about the fighter's design?
So I think it is. So it's not front loaded in the sense of the things that it can do. The problem is that some things are just very, very good and evergreen. Like the things they get at the beginning are always going to be good.
Right, just like the hexblade in 5e. Like
So but those things by themselves aren't like an issue. Like if they were to got them, like it's okay that they're there in the beginning. It's just that they're going to be really good. So I wouldn't like if I take them away, what does the fighter have?
I mean, you could give them a bonus feat, and then you could lock their +2 bonus behind advancement. You could say that they get a +1 at level 3, and then they get the +2 when they get to level 5 or something.
So keep in mind that they can't, that +2 is there at the beginning, and once they hit level 5, they have to pick one weapon type.
Right.
So at that point, they always have to pick that one weapon type to keep that +2. Otherwise, that +2 goes away.
Right.
So yes, they have it at the beginning. I mean, if you want not have lock the +2 behind, until you get to level 5, once you pick your weapon, sure. I mean, you could do that.
Yeah.
But then what they have is reactive strike and the shield block.
But I mean, they have reactive strike.
What happens if you're a ranged fighter?
Yeah, but I mean, reactive strike is a 6th level feature of everybody else. Like they're getting it at level 1. I don't know. I don't know if I'm convinced yet. Like, I'm not gonna be like, hey, nobody can play a fighter in my games, but I've definitely just like, especially now that I'm seeing the other classes do come online, as was promised. I just wish they came online sooner. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like playing Commander in Magic, and you've got a fast deck, right? But the other 3 guys at the table, they're like, my deck doesn't come online until turn 8, and it's like, well, I hadn't planned to play to turn 8. You know what I mean? Like, so now I'm the asshole because I brought the fast deck, and I want to finish this in four rounds, but you guys don't come online until 8. So like, if I finish up early, then I'm an asshole because this is a social game. So like, I don't know. It just feels.
Most marshals do get their thing really early.
Right.
Like Rogue has so many skills. They get all their skills so early, and they
like
get all
level
the things.
3, they've got every skill in the game. Yeah.
I mean, you can actually start the game. If you went the intelligence rogue, you would start the game with all the skills.
With every skill.
And you also get extra skill feats too. Remy had a question. So at level, I think 9, they get a versatile feat, so they can switch out they have one feat slot they can switch out every day. And I think again they get another one again at like 17 or something like that, or one of those things. But yeah, I like rage, the new rage. I mean, the new rage for barbarian that they can just start combat raging for free, and the rage gives them temp HP with no downside anymore, and it gives them such a big damage bonus that it outpaces fighter if the fighter doesn't crit.
Right. Okay, but then we're playing most games, just like most 5e games play with feats. Most Pathfinder games play with free archetype. Any weakness at all, any shortcoming at all that your fighter has, you can just plug the gap with free archetype. Like, I guess the question here is,
we do that with every other.
Did anybody die in your adventure?
It was close. Yeah, we had.
It was close, but no one actually died. You had no actual like magical healers. You had no magic support, and still nobody died. I doubt you could have those kind of results if you had a party of, I don't know, 5 swashbucklers. All right, that's a terrible example. But like, if everybody had to play a swashbuckler, do you think that there would have been no deaths?
If they did a
party of 5 swashbucklers.
I think it probably could have been the same thing, because the swashbuckler would have had a lot more ways to debuff the boss.
Okay. All right.
And then once they got that debuff off and did the finisher, that finisher would do more damage. If that finisher critted, it would do more damage than a fighter crit.
Yeah. I could see that. Remy says, why not just make it a +1 bonus instead of a +2 and give them standard weapon proficiency?
Yeah. I mean, there's many ways you could do it.
Yeah.
But
I think for me, it's just gonna be the same way that in 5e, if you rolled up to my table and you're like, this is my artificer, I'd be like, well, that's your business. And like, I just accept that I don't like you as a human being. So it's like cool. You show up and you're like, check out my fighter, and I'm like, that's cool. Oh, what's this character over here? Anything that's not a fighter? Man, I really like this character. There's a lot of good character over here. Like, I think that's just unfortunately how I'm gonna spend my next 3 or 4 years of Pathfinder. Is like, somebody shows up with a fighter, I'm like, oh, you basic. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. I too like to do well when I play a game. I don't know why I'm not playing a fighter, honestly. Because I mean,
you're too scarred from AV. You're not supposed to be fighting +3 monsters every single fight. You're not supposed to be fighting +3 monsters. That's an outlier.
Remy ain't wrong. Listen, Remy ain't wrong, because I would say, and Josh took me to school when I was complaining to him about my witch. He took me to school when I was complaining about my witch, and he taught me everything about the spellcasting in Pathfinder. And my takeaway is, I'm too stupid and lazy to be a good spellcaster in Pathfinder 2. It's too big brain. It's too smart of a game for me, right? I should have just made a fighter that archetyped into another fighter. Like, that's what I should have made for my character to play, because I just don't got the headspace to keep track of like all the Yu-Gi-Oh Pokemon weaknesses and damages and all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? So like, I don't know. If you know what you're doing, the spellcasters can be really, really good. If everybody's working together as a team, spellcasters can be really good. If you're just a guy who's like, I have a cool spell, I'm gonna cast it, 9 times out of 10, the enemy's just gonna save against it, and you're gonna be like, oh, well, that was my turn, and then you move on with your life. So, yeah. But anyways, don't read too much into it, Dom. I think your Kingmaker character is great. Yeah, because you got wisdom, and you said something. You got wisdom and charisma. Yeah, I mean, you got a lot going on. So you got Aminal that follows you around. It's gonna be great. Yeah,
it's Akon it's Akon as a fighter with a bird.
I mean, Akon was pretty basic too. I'm gonna be honest. So.
Exactly. This is finally my chance to be, go be basic fantasy.
Yeah,
human
exactly.
fighter. I've never played that before.
Here's the thing. I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna not allow it. It's just if somebody shows up at my table with a fighter, I'm gonna be like, oh, you basic. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's fine. This is a system where, from personal experience, if you want or need to be basic, do it. Do you know what I'm saying? Don't make it hard on yourself. Like,
exactly.
I'm struggling, man. Like, to enjoy like being a spellcaster in this system, because I don't want to have to keep track of like who's got the worst save for what, and like, like you have to have all these buffs in the right order. I mean, I'm not playing Pathfinder 1. At least I thought I wasn't. You know what I'm saying? Where I've got to have a fucking like script I read off of to make sure that I've got all the right buffs in the right order, and I took all the right spells for the right days of the week, and like, yeesh. Meanwhile, this asshole over here is rolling with a +2. He gets a critical for 70 points of damage. Like, why am I working so hard? That's the question that I ask myself. Like, why am I working so hard? So, I don't know. It's definitely a skill issue. It's a skill issue thing.
But I will say that person, he wouldn't have got there to get to that fight if you didn't, help him get there with everything else he had to do before that.
I've been informed that I'm supposed to be finding joy in the buffing and debuffing and not pay attention to anything else. Just I got it. All right. It's easy to say as a former 5e cleric who was like, yeah, I'm here for support, and then they drop Spirit Guardians and Spiritual Weapon, and and they also happen to be a light cleric, so they drop, I don't know, a Fireball, no big deal, and it's like a real Fireball, not a Pathfinder Fireball. Anyways, all right, so moving away from fighters, because I don't want to talk anymore. What are your top 2 things that went right with your experimental solo boss, and the top 2 things that you need to fix?
Okay, so I think making it a single boss feel more like a solo boss that can hold their own against a group of people. And then the players can still, hit the boss, and it doesn't feel like they're constantly being, saving against their abilities and missing, and it's just a matter of hopefully we roll high enough to get it. But that's all it is. I feel like this works because the monster is not as strong. It just has more HP and more maneuvering, and then it still keeps the balance of Pathfinder in account with the other activations only having the stats of a lower level monster. So that's one thing. It made for some cool moments where at the end here there was a moment where Watchman Thorpe was like stood up, got like a reactive strike as she ran away from him. Then her next activation, she moved in, hit him, and then moved out. And the next activation moved in, hit him, and moved out. And because it was the second activations, they had less chance of hitting, so he was able to block them. But it was still the boss, running and attacking him, and him, blocking it off, which was pretty cool at the end. There was moments where the boss, cast a spell to teleport and get into position, and then when their second activation went through, they used that to attack the gunslinger. Okay. Like teleported behind the gunslinger. That's a 2-action spell.
Yeah.
They only have 1 action left. They can attack with it, but their next activation, they can use one of the stronger attacks in their second stat block, which is less chance to hit and not as much damage as their normal attack, but it's still a decent attack. And they can do those cool things. So I think it made it a little bit more cinematic in terms of single monster. There's one thing that I set up here that wasn't really utilized too much that I kind of wish would utilize, and maybe I just need to say it outright when it happens. But whenever the other activations happen, I gave them a distinct description. So like when her blood turn came on, I said that her arm sores opened up and her arm started bleeding, and that blood was like hanging around her arm, and that was her blood spear. And then I also said that her sword ignited, and it's an actual flame that seems to be flickering. And part of that was to let them know that, hey, maybe there's these things, and I told them that this is a hazardous boss. So there's other ways you can damage her based off of these descriptions.
So if I had dumped a bucket of water on her when she was in fire mode, would that have disabled fire mode?
Polly, improvised weapon, found a bottle of water. She used 2 actions to sort of disable the device on her sword, and it did 30 damage, which is a third of the fire.
Okay.
Hazard.
Yeah.
Like a thirdish of that fire hazard.
Now,
and if you look
did you have those pre-designed and pre-planned, or did you have the idea and you were just going to kind of wing it as you went?
So these monsters, these demons, the Brimok has extinguished aversion.
Yeah.
So that was their own built-in weakness where they take mental damage if they're doused in water. Okay. So that gave me the idea of also. So I kept the aversion. So if they did do it, she took mental damage. If they succeeded, then they would take this thing will take the 30 damage, which would be like a third of the hazard's HP.
Okay.
Yep.
Did that disable it though, or just do a lot of damage?
Did a lot of damage. If they did it, like every other type of.
But
hazard,
even though these were hazards, you weren't willing to let them be shut down, or if they had done 3 disables,
they would have shut down.
Got it.
That thing would have been done. She would not have her flyer sword anymore.
Which is where your dream of like Pathfinder monster hunters coming from, because the monsters are obviously going to have their parts as hazards.
Their crown,
Yeah, I got you. Okay. And then disabling those parts, not only is it lowering the health of the monster, but then it will disable them using those parts in the fight.
They won't have the activation anymore.
And as we've discussed in several other design vodcasts, you don't feel that is an issue for the difficulty of the encounter, even though you're basically losing action economy on the boss. So one would argue that the curve of the difficulty is constantly going down.
Well, I mean, how do you make a fight with 3 monsters? I guess unless you have it so you power up the original one, which is what we talked about.
Right. Yeah.
So I could, that could be a thing.
So
Maybe
like a
she,
monster,
she
like
gets,
a
she gets
monster
it
loses
after-
its tail and then it starts to move faster because it doesn't have the tail weighing it down. Kind of thing?
maybe I'll make her, if her fire sword goes away, she's hasted.
Okay, I got you. Okay.
Yeah. So she's not lugging around her fire sword anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
That's something I could probably think about.
Yeah.
It didn't happen in this fight because no one disabled them.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about losing 3 of your like a third of your action economy. I mean, it's kind of hard to make up for that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but that's somebody who's not attacking, running up to somebody, putting themselves in danger, and using 2 actions to try to do a skill check.
Right, but still doing a significant amount of damage. At 5th level, a lot of classes would be pretty excited to do 30 points of damage. Not a fighter or a gunslinger, but like a normal class would be pretty excited to do 30 points of damage. I've got 8th level characters that when they crit, they do 16 damage, Dom. You know what I'm saying? So like a 5th level character being able to do 30 damage for 2 Pac-Mans, that's pretty good. That person, and now they can get in on this. Okay.
Because they're more focused on skill rather than combat.
Gotcha.
And they're putting themselves in danger by getting close to this monster.
True.
Like what happens when they use their 2 actions. They run up, 1 action, 2 action to disable. Now they're standing next to the monster. The monster's gonna spend all their actions. And it's also they just had the audacity to try and disable one of their things. And that monster's gonna
bust them in the face. Yeah. No. And again, one of my bigger regrets about Alchemist is that I did not feel comfortable enough at the beginning to kind of come up with my own subsystems, or I definitely would have had more to do with like disabling clockworks in combat, because the way that they handle it raw is pointless. Yeah. But yeah, bigger rewards for that kind of stuff would have been huge, and it would have been very thematic and very rewarding for those nerd classes that made that their focus. Okay.
So the blood one was if she got healed. If somebody tried to medicine check her wounds.
Now, how long are those available to be disabled? Is the question. Until the next part of her starts. So she's only in blood mode until fire mode starts.
Or can
they always go after blood
they can
mode?
always. So if they all want to, if there's one activation that's really powerful, really bad, and they need to get rid of it. If they want to work together to get rid of it, they could try. Yeah.
I'm picturing like a massive sea serpent, like so big that it fills an entire cave, so you can't get past it. But then it's got 6 smaller heads growing out of it that are full-size sea serpents, and then each of them has their own special effect, and you have to kill those heads to disable them, because certain heads are going to make it impossible for you to actually do the fight. Do you think something like that might work?
Yeah, it could.
It could?
Sure.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Do you think it might work too well is the problem? I'm worried that maybe it's going to work too well.
It could. I mean,
it could. Okay.
I mean, as long as you kept it in the counterbalance round, route where the
okay.
The level.
Yeah, sure. What? Anyways, good thing that's
DC wise for this.
The
DCs disable are all the hard DCs for the level.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so you have to be, you want to be able to be good at it. And I do have.
So are you following the popular house rule of these are the recommended skills at this DC, but I'll allow any skill that you bullshit at a 5 point higher or whatever? I might. So right now, there was using water. So however you're using that water. In the case of Polly, she was hitting the sword with a glass bottle full of water. Gotcha.
So I made her use an attack roll as a skill check. It wasn't an attack roll to hit, but it was an attack roll against this high DC, which was higher than her AC. So that was the case of this case. But if they're like, okay, I want to try and hold her and put the water on there, I'll probably make an athletics. Or if it's like depends on how they tell me they're whatever they BS, put the water on there.
Okay.
Whereas with the blood one, it specifically was medicine.
Gotcha. Or if they had healing, like if they had taken chosen one, would they? No, I guess they couldn't do that because lay on hands is a spell in the system. Yeah. But if they had a scroll of cure wounds or whatever, you would have allowed them to cast it on her, and then that would have been the same effect.
I don't think so, because she also gets healed by So the point here is to stop the wounds from bleeding. So if they went, so it's not necessary to heal her because she can get healed by vitality healing.
Okay.
As a demon, she's not an undead.
Sure. Okay.
So I probably wouldn't make magic healing do it. It would have to be a medicine check to stop the bleeding.
What if I was an alchemist and I was like, can I throw glue on the wounds so that they cauterize with the glue?
Cool. That sounds cool to me.
All right. All right. I like where you're going with it. I'm excited to see the monsters that get built for this. Are we going to get to see some of these monsters in Extra Life next week? See how we transition into the I am
gonna make a solo monster in Extra Life, and I will tell you that this has already been seeded into SOT as well. So you guys will run into the monsters like this in SOT.
Okay. Well, we know the titular Tree Raiser is going to be the final boss of the marathon. So should we look under the hood of the strongest official stat block in Pathfinder and add some hazards to them?
Why not? I don't see why not. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm glad your experiment went well. I've learned a lot from it. It has done nothing to improve my attitude about fighters.
It is what it is.
But it has me excited about the possibilities for bosses because a year and a half of Pathfinder, and man, I miss them Paragons, bro. I missed them Paragon monsters.
This felt pretty good.
Yeah.
It felt pretty good like it.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I haven't been overly disappointed with the bosses that I have run in Alchemist. There have been some that, like, gun crit dead, that's the fight. But most of them, I feel, have put up a fight. They've been memorable. You know, they've done their work, as it were. But man, I know that, like, they could do better. I know that we could do better. Yeah. All right, great.
I will say, somebody did. I did get some feedback on this, saying that sometimes with them having all three actions in their second activation was a lot sometimes, because they'll run up on their main turn, do something, and then their next activation is the next one, and then they have three actions right in front of somebody, like just beat them down on one person.
What if part of the rule is they have to have a space between their activations? Like, there has to be someone else between them if possible.
So. I had them all have lower, like 5 less initiative for everybody, but maybe that could be a thing. Another thing I mentioned, and somebody said this is probably kind of cool. I think it was Red who I was selling this to. They have the other activations have 2 actions and are quickened so that they only can use their third action, 1 action to move.
Oh,
that's
they can
always move
cool.
around.
Yeah.
But they only have 2 actions to do anything else. The only problem is that some of these monsters have like a cool 3-action ability. So, I mean, I want to have a 3-action ability inside one of these activations. So maybe not. I'll see. I'm not gonna.
Well, another thing you could do that I've been experimenting with, like not in a game, but just sort of like working through it, is you give them 9 actions per round, and then they spend those actions however they see fit. And they could even spend them in between other people's turns. But then you could also, I mean, that doesn't really solve the problem. I think it actually makes it worse. But
because then if they can spend them all,
they can't spend more than 3 in a go, but they can use them to sort of act in between turns as well. So if they wanted to like reposition or something like that, they could burn those actions. So if you're putting pressure on a boss in between turns, they could step, and that burns one of their actions for the round. So now they have less actions to use on their stuff. It's just, I don't know. We'll get there.
Yeah.
All right, I gotta go eat dinner and
same here.
Date night and all that jazz. I hope you have a good weekend. I got such a busy weekend going on. It's nuts.
This weekend is probably gonna be mostly Extra Life prep for me.
Wow. All right, this weekend's gonna be 4 tabletop games and a trip to the amusement park. So,
Holy moly.
Yeah. So it'll be great. All right. Anyways, hope everybody has a great weekend. I'll be back tomorrow morning to run some Outlaws, and we'll see you next time.